Hey, shalom, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, call hello, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Ba'ashem, Kakwadash. Once again, double honors go out to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone, all right, who deserve double honors. Salutations also go out to the fellow Akim out there on the highways and byways, pushing this truth across the four corners of the earth, trying to wake up the remaining hopeful elect. This is Naaman with the DC camp. And this video, I had forgotten about this, actually. I was in high school when this happened. This senator from Georgia spoke the truth about what's going on. Now, this individual you see here, freeze frame, is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, CFR, yes. And I'm going to let you decide, is this an interview or is this an interrogation? You figure it out. But the guy opposite him, his fellow interviewer, interrogator, is a jackass by the name of Pat Buchanan. If anybody's familiar, especially here in the DMV, of a Sunday morning show that aired for years called the McLaughlin Group. He was on that panel for a long time. He was in the Nixon administration. You'll see. Anyway, so let's go ahead and roll this. But this senator spoke truth to power. And from what he said, you're going to understand that not only was, he was prophetic in what he's saying, but again, it's nothing that the scriptures hadn't been saying long before him. All right. So let's go ahead and roll this.
Wait a minute. There is an elite corps in this country that has dominated American society. Well, their objective is to try to bring about a gradual transition in our society, a dissolving of sovereignty, and a moving steadily to the left on the political spectrum.
Is that not what's happening?
The elitist groups that I mentioned, particularly key individuals and policymakers in the Council on Foreign Relations. Monetary Fund part of it?
The interview you're about to watch is a perfect example of what happens when a politician steps out of line. Larry McDonald was a U.S. politician who served as a Democratic member of the U.S. House of Representatives.
Real quick, Salaki, I'm sorry, but I must needs read this. Let's see. And this is the copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use. Now, what is fair use? Fair use, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research, which is what I'm doing. I'm not profiting from this, don't intend to. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. All right, got that out of the way. Now let's return to the film.
Politician who served as a Democratic member of the U.S. House of Representatives from 1975 to 1983. He represented Georgia's 7th Congressional District. Despite being a Democrat, McDonald was a conservative and a staunch opponent of communism. On September 1st, 1983, Larry McDonald was aboard Korean Airlines Flight 007. The plane, a civilian Boeing 747, was en route from New York City to Seoul, South Korea, with 269 passengers and crew on board. All passengers and crew, including Larry McDonald himself, perished in the crash. The circumstances surrounding the downing of Korean Airlines Flight 007 are controversial at best. Others call it a false flag attack. But one thing's for sure. This was the last interview he ever gave.
Mr. McDonald, I'm not a conspirator. I think even Buchanan would vouch for that.
Well, you are,
Robert Wells.
What?
Count the times he says conspirator in this case.
Robert Wells. No, I don't think so. Yeah, I'm a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. You had a conspiracy?
Well, you've certainly. Well,
Let me just tell you what Newsweek says that the John Birch Society considers communism only one arm of a master conspiracy in which socialist American insiders are plotting to establish world government. Now, it also says, and here's Director John McManus, that's your public relations director, saying that former Secretary of State Alexander Haig and CIA Director William Casey are two of these master conspirators who are plotting to establish world government. Now, what do you say? That kind of silly, asinine statement is what makes people laugh at the John Birch Society.
Well, Tom, I'm sure being a long-standing member of the Rockefeller apparatus, and as a member of the Council on Foreign Relations of longstanding, you're fully aware that there is an elitist core in this country that has seen value in subsidizing communism, of protecting communism.
It has?
Sure.
You're accusing me of subsidizing communism?
No, I'm saying
because I happen to belong to a...
there is an elite core. Wait a minute. There is an elite core in this country that has dominated American society.
Well, I'm not one of them.
Trilateral Commission. The Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations. Here's
I suppose.
Well, let's face it, they've dominated the State Department for 40 years, and pretty much openly.
Right,
so.
but what are they trying to do?
Well, their objective is to try to bring about a gradual transition in our society, a dissolving of sovereignty, and a moving steadily to the left on the political spectrum.
Well, who are they?
The elitist groups that I mentioned, particularly key individuals and policymakers in the Council on
Is the
Foreign
International
Relations.
Monetary Fund part of this?
Well, I would say the International Monetary Fund has certainly been set up for the purpose of facilitating that transfer of sovereignty and transfer of wealth on the road.
Right, we elected Mr. Conservative.
Let me just finish the point, because otherwise we're going to have a lot of unanswered questions. That you are looking at a group that has worked to bring about a dissolution of national sovereignty on the road to world government. And certainly you're familiar with local Professor Carroll Quigley, who has been part of your club, in which he admitted all this. And he said in his book, Tragedy and Hope, the only thing I disagree is that we've worked to keep it a secret. And you see Arthur Schlesinger Jr. writing way back in 1947, says, yes, this is the hidden policy of America. But we can't tell the American public because they're too unsophisticated to see the value.
What's the mentality of
Dumbass Americans, in other words.
What you say about Arthur? That's the silliest statement I ever heard. He never made anything like that.
Well, let me suggest that you read the May-June issue of the Partisan Review of 1947, Tom, and you can read it for yourself. It's called...
There was a conspiracy. A conspiracy to promote communism?
Oh, he didn't use the word conspiracy. He said the objective was to... Let me finish. I'll tell you. He said that the objective, the secret policy, which we can't tell the American public because they're not sophisticated enough to see the value, is that through a steady result of erosion of New Deals, we bring the American society steadily to the left, and through a sound concept of benign containment, we merge into the vital center of the socialist left. Those are his words, not mine.
I think John Kennedy was a member of that conspiracy.
No, let me ask you this. The World Federalist Movement in the post-war era.
Yeah, this wicked-ass Pat Buchanan.
A lot of people thought the UN in
Motherfucker.
the post-war era looked toward world government. Indeed, they did, up until 48, 49. But a lot of them said, look, we were utopian. That's over and done with. We can't move. And a lot of them came in Kennedy's government. Schlesinger was in there when they were fighting in Vietnam, launched the effort in Vietnam. Schlesinger was behind the Bay of Pigs. In other words, look, isn't there some move that occurred in the post-war era that now has been dissipated because nobody believes in the utopian ideal of world government anymore?
Well, I think there are those that realize that moving straight from a prototype of the United Nations into world government perhaps is tactically impossible. But phasing out increasingly national sovereignty into regional government and phasing out sovereignties into international treaties in multiple areas.
The whole movement toward, quote, interdependence.
Yeah.
NATO is part of the conspiracy?
Well, there are certainly elements in NATO. There are people in NATO who are very strongly dedicated to the defense of the West. But at the same time, you find in NATO a steady dissolution. You find a growing weakness as a NATO policy dominated by State Department policies that has not worked.
Well, it's a regional grouping, and I think, therefore, it may be suspect by the John Birch Society.
We're talking with Congressman Larry McDonald, who has recently been elevated, I guess, to chairmanship of the John Birch Society, succeeding Robert Welch. We'll be back in a minute.
Congressman Larry McDonald, a Democrat from Georgia. Mr. McDonald, your predecessor believed that the PTA was too left-wing and that the John Birch Society at one time tried to infiltrate it.
I ain't trying to mock him and shit.
You still, is that part of
Make mockery of him.
Well, I think when the PTA comes out in this program for the test ban treaty, and when the PTA comes out for gun control, it comes out for obviously national legislative programs that have been linked with liberaldom, having nothing to do with education of our children. I think many people are wondering what in the world is the PTA doing, and that includes members of the John Birch Society.
Well, I wonder about you. I wonder about you. I looked you up. You're the biggest joiner that I've ever seen in the world. You belong, as I counted them, to 67 organizations, among which are the National Rifle Association, the American Pistol and Revolver Association, the Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms, the Second Amendment Foundation, and the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms.
Well, Tom, I think there's a real drive in this country to try to destroy the realization of our citizens that they have a fundamental constitutional right to keep and bear arms as the Constitution allows. And unfortunately, there are those in our society, including elements of the PTA nationally, not always locally by any stretch, but nationally, who would believe that the federal government should restrict the right of citizens to keep and bear arms.
Let me ask you about this conspiracy again.
Well, you can take the issue of one of the major problems of this country is inflation, right, and the problems of the destruction of the dollar. And the fact of the matter is, in spite of promises to the contrary, Reagan has not moved to correct the deficiencies. We're now back to Keynesian economics, despite comments to the contrary.
Do you think that's a result of the conspiracy you mentioned? Is there somebody working on them to get the inflation so that this country will be weaker?
Well, as a man who campaigned against elitism, as a man who in his campaign rhetoric said that he would not be having the Council on Foreign Relations trilateral types dominating his cabinet, he's got about 250 members of such in his administration.
Well, let me ask you about Bill Casey. Now, I've known Bill.
Members. Of the trilateral commission.
I've known Bill Casey
in the administration.
I've known Bill Casey, the director of CIA, since World War II. As a matter of fact, in World War II, he was my boss. Now, your public relations director, the John Birch Society, says that Bill Casey is a part of this conspiracy.
Well, Bill Casey, before he became CIA, one of his big jobs was aiding in the transfer of technology and goods and so forth to the Soviet Union, helping the Kama River Project, the Export-Import Bank, helping to finance these things.
The Export-Import Bank part of the conspiracy?
I think the whole drive, that the fact that the American people have been tapped steadily, especially since World War II, to finance their enemies and to have the massive technology transfer to those who I agree with you. You know that from the Braden Doctrine in the agency, which you're very familiar with. And the feeling that we must somehow subsidize the, quote, non-communist left. That's among our so-called allies.
Braden was
and in country after country, that turned out to be the communists, the crypto-communists masquerading.
Yeah, that's Mr. Mitterrand, who has taken the strongest position against the Russians of any Western European.
Well, he was about to lose everything at the polls, and he had to show some sign. It's very difficult to say exactly how far that will be.
Congressman McDonald, he's using the term conspiracy.
No, I didn't use it. For heaven's sake, Pat. The John Birch Society used it.
I go through the tapes.
Well, don't blame it on me. He used it.
You've used it 45 times.
That's right. They say this is a conspiracy. I want to know what the conspiracy is. I'm trying to find out who's in it and what agencies of government in it, because I want to fight it along with you.
You look like...
Great, Tom. Let me tell you, Tom. As a
member of the conspiracy, he's a member of the press.
Let me ask you, Mr. Braden's used for the 47th time the term conspiracy. Now, let me ask you seriously. When you use people like Casey, who is on the Council on Foreign Relations, David Rockefeller's Trilateral Commission, what do you mean, or do you mean, is that your term, the term conspiracy?
Well, there are many different levels of the problem. But yes, the term has been used, the term of conspiracy. When you have a group of people...
I mean, they're actively collaborating, and at the other end of that point of collaboration are communists, and on this end of the point of collaboration is Bill Casey and trilateralists and CFR.
Well, hey, you have people who are part of the elitist structure of this country that have dominated this country openly for 40 years.
I know, but they're not... Is that a conspiracy?
Now, wait a minute. If people quietly working together for evil objectives, two or more, that by definition is a conspiracy. You have by their own admission, you look at The Tragedy and Hope by Professor Carroll Quigley, who's a member of this elitist group. He says, sure, we've been working this. Sure, we've been collaborating with communism. Yes, we're working for a global accommodation. Yes, we're working for world government. The only thing I object to is that we have kept it a secret. And I think we've gone so far along, we should come out and say,
I'll bet you $1.50 that Bill Casey doesn't know who Professor Quigley is. I don't.
He's at Georgetown a number of years ago.
He died a couple of years ago, and he wrote The Tragedy and Hope. He's a very noted member of your club, Tom.
Tom, you've got to broaden your reading.
Read more about conspiracies, and that's why I'm interested in.
Well, I'll tell you what you ought to do is go back and look at your founder, Edward Mandell House, because he wrote the book Philip Drew Administrator in England.
For those of you who don't know Edward Mandell House, he had the honorary title of Colonel bestowed upon him. He had the ear of Woodrow Wilson, that wicked piece of shit, former president, that screened that The Birth of a Nation by, that got a lot of our people killed as a result. Yeah, that Bama. That's who he's talking about. And all that was in the works even back then. This goes back at least to Albert Pike and those pieces of shit, But he's right. It is by definition, and he pointed out the meaning of conspiracy,
House said that what he envisioned for the world was a world government along socialist lines as envisioned by Karl Marx. Now, that's your leader.
See?
Tom, so you got to go back to the beginning.
Well, his leader was Woodrow Wilson. Do you think he was a communist?
No, I think Woodrow Wilson was his follower. I think Edward Mandell House dominated Wilson, not the other way around.
See?
And so Edward Mandell House, that was we ought to make that clear. He was President Wilson's
alter ego. That's correct.
Yeah. So he is the real villain from which all these.
See, here's the thing. All right, they've got all this, world domination type, shit in their mind, like they're going to really accomplish something, and they're not, because they're not the ones in control. The ultimate puppet master is the Most High Yahweh. All right, these people are the puppets. All right, they think, and foolishly so, that they are going to accomplish their end goal, which is to establish a new world order, a world government. And if you can't see this at this point, and this interview was 40 years ago. All right. In fact, I believe it was sometime in May of '83. Anyway, so let's get some scriptures. All right. Let's get some scriptures in here. All right, let's see. Because this is what it's all about. Let's go to Psalms 120. Hold on, 125 and 3. All right, it says, "For the scepter of wickedness won't remain over the allotment of the righteous." Hey, we've been getting our ass kicked, and deservedly so. It's not like this is not without cause, because you have cause and effect. All right. For those that believe that we're unjustly punished, no, we deserve every bit, and in fact, more, as Scripture says. All right. So, this devil has been set up over us as punishment. Psalm 17. All right, and King David prayed in verse 13. All right, I'll get that after I finish this. But for the scepter, I'm going to read again, Psalm 125 and 3. For the scepter of wickedness, all right, who's ruling over us, won't remain over the allotment of the righteous. So we have that. That's a guarantee. All right. So that the righteous won't use their hands to do evil. Remember Matthew 22, 24 and 22. All right. Let's get that real quick. All right. Let's see, Matthew 24 and 22. All right. Because you're seeing how everything is corrupted and polluted, and it's getting worse. All right. And it says, "And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened." Haven't you noticed how quickly the days and weeks are passing? We're already almost at the halfway point. Let's see, today is the 12th. We got another 10 days, and we're into the second half of the year. Yes, these days are passing quickly, and there's a purpose for it. We're reading it. All right. Again, Matthew 24 and 22. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. All right. Now let's go back to the other one. All right. So let's get, let's see. Let me change this up here. Let's see. All right. Let's see. Proverbs 28. All right. All right. It says, as a roaring lion and a raging bear, so is a wicked ruler over the poor people. And the poor in this case is the nation of Israel, so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American. All right, and all those scattered abroad. This is worldwide. All right, they know that the only threat to this new world order is the Israelites, because after all, this is spiritual warfare. And you're seeing them just, what was the expression? Let it all hang out. They're not even trying to hide their wickedness now. You got this thing with the schools, with this, we're in this abominable month called Pride Month, June. All right, like I say, they're letting it all hang out. It's not funny. It's quite sad. And you understand what Lot was going through, you know? Damn. 16, the prince that wanteth understanding is also a great oppressor. But he that hateth covetousness shall prolong his days. All right? Because we're also, you know, that goes to Habakkuk's 2nd chapter, who is over us. You know, and it tells you in the Apocrypha, well, let's go there. That's why I changed this up. Let's go to Sirach, 10th chapter. All right. Let's go down here to 7. Pride is hateful before the Most High and man, and by both doth one commit iniquity. And who's more prideful than the so-called white man, the nation of Edom? 8, because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. But he's so proud and bold, he pats himself on his own back, say, I've done good. Isaiah 10 and 13, he thinks this is by his own craftiness and by his own will that he's been able to accomplish this. No, not even close. In Ezekiel 28 chapter, it tells them, said, no, you think you're God? Oh, no. I'm going to remind you, I'm paraphrasing, of course, that you're just a man. All right? Because it also tells you further up in that chapter, Ezekiel 28, that how he got all of his riches. All right? And he had the opportunity to do good things, but he chose not to. All right? So, verse 9. Why is earth, let me read 8 again. Because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit. We all know the stories. 8 John 10 and 10. The kingdom is translated from one people to another. 9. Why is earth and ashes proud? Good question. Again, like I said, Ezekiel 28 chapter, he tells him, he's going to remind him that he's just a man and no God. So why is earth and ashes proud? There is not a more wicked thing than a covetous man. For such an one setteth his own soul to sale, because while he liveth, he casteth away his bowels. 10. The physician, that's Yahushua, cutteth off a long disease. And this is what he is in the earth, a disease. Everything is spoiled. Everything is being destroyed, killed off. Animals going extinct. Whole ecosystems destroyed. This man is death. All right. The physician cutteth off a long disease, and he that is today a king, tomorrow shall die. All right. a change of estate or state. All right. That's what's happening. That's what's going. That's his. Hey, read Obadiah. That one short chapter says so much. It's talking about this devil, this so-called white man. All his schemes and his plans are going to come to naught. He was set up to do what he's doing, and as Second Thessalonians goes, the second chapter goes into, all right, he's going to get the carpet pulled out from under. All right, this is the modern day version of Pharaoh of ancient Egypt. All right, he's being set up so high. His pride has become so great. All right, hey, Proverbs 18 and 16, pride goeth before fall. Right? Let's get that real quick. All right. Let's see. I think I did it backwards, 16 and 18. Hold on. Yep. Pride goeth before destruction, and an haughty spirit before fall. Just like I said moments ago, who's more prideful than this so-called white man? We got some more scriptures here. And of course, all these unrighteous decrees, people are in, and Jake, let's just put it out there. Jake has been struggling all the while. You know, you have a few of us that are under this illusion that they're doing really good, you know, because, hey, they're gone. But my point in saying this is that you're getting ready to see a whole nother side for those of you that you know, believe in that civil rights bullshit, and you were put back to sleep, and now you think these people have changed, and the people I'm talking about, so-called white man, you about to see, because you're seeing, and we see it in their faces, these motherfuckers are beginning to get trouble. And every time that has happened throughout the history of this country, all right, who's paid for it? Who did they reach out and touch in a very negative way? And that was Jake. All right. So, yeah. And of course, they're going to blame us for what's going on in, you know, more ways than one. But yeah, you know, you could say that Jake, you know, for those that don't believe in Jacob's trouble, that aren't able to see what's going on, you know, really it's just common sense. But hey, like I said, common sense isn't common to everybody. But in any case, let's go to Micah 7. All right. And this is wait for the God of salvation. All right. And this is these devils, you know, that they may do evil. Let's start at the top. It says, woe is me, for I am as when they have gathered the summer fruits, as the grape gleanings of a vintage. There is no cluster to eat. My soul desired the first ripe fruit. The good man is perished out of the earth, and there is none upright among men. They all lie in wait for blood. They hunt every man his brother with a net. 3, that they may do evil with both hands earnestly. The prince asketh, and the judge asketh for reward. And the great man, he uttereth his mischievous desire, so they wrap it up. The best of them is as a briar. The most upright is sharper than a thorn hedge. The day of thy watchman and thy visitation cometh. Now shall be their perplexity. And that, my friends, is the very, very near future. You're already seeing people that really were just in the beginnings of this, and they're starting to freak out. All right. There's going to be, and this is what this devil is doing. He's trying to cut off all avenues. All right. Any hope of help. That whole thing with this DVOC 19, all right, it cut out for the most part, the mom and pop stores, where if you could, and you were in tight with someone in your neighborhoods especially, you could maybe use the old bartering system, or what used to be what Jake would do when they worked for Mr. Charlie. They had what they called toting privileges, or toting privileges. Instead of money, you would get something else in, return for your labor, whatever. Or you would have, say, in some neighborhoods, you would have a credit system to where you could get stuff from the store and you would pay later, like something on the lines of a layaway type stuff. All right. But that's going to be cut out because they're changing the system. So this devil's going to know. See, it's layers to this, and then as you peel each layer back, you see how much more wicked this shit that's coming is going to be. All right. You still have idiots amongst our people. You don't care about the heathen that just look at this. Oh, it's going to be so convenient. You don't have to carry around. Hey, jackass, there's always a more sinister reason for what these devils do. All right. Don't just look at the surface of anything when it comes to dealing with the so-called white man. All right. So that's primarily going to be it. Let's see if I had any more. That's the gist of it. I guess I get one more. Proverbs. Let's go to Proverbs, because, like I say, they have so many plans. They just think, hey, Psalms 49:11. They just think their houses are going to go on forever. Oh, no. But again, this is Proverbs 19:21. There are many devices in a man's heart. Nevertheless, the counsel of the Most High Yahweh, the Most High, that shall stand. So all these plans these grandiose plans that they have, they're going to establish our new world order, what they've been talking about since, you've heard that outright since Daddy Bush. All right. Yes, 1,000 points of light. Yeah, that devil. But anyway, he's long dead now, so. But yeah, their rulership is nearing its end. They sense it. That's why they're trying to hurry up with this. So let's see what little else he has to say here and play it on out.
So he is the real villain from which all these conspiracies.
No. He is a major figure, but there has been, unfortunately, in the West, an element. There are good members in the Council on Foreign Relations, dedicated, patriotic people. You've had Sproul Braden, who was a member of the Council of Bircheside, Bill Buckley's and Council on Foreign Relations. You've got some dedicated people, but the driving forces have very clearly been willing to collaborate, subsidize, work for technology transfer for what they feel is some type of an accommodation and merger. And I submit this would be a disaster for the American Republic.
Are there any in Congress?
Sure.
I disagree with Congressman McDonald. The idea of conspiracy with you and your friends, I think it's more of a herding instinct. The direction you've been moving in, inertia, carries you further and further. But I do think this. That slogan, get the U.S. out of the UN and the UN out of the U.S., looks better and better every day, doesn't it? Maybe they were ahead of their time on that one.
No, Pat, I think we got to have communications with the world, and the UN makes me mad too, but I don't think it's a part of the great conspiracy which extends from Bill Casey and Al Haig all the way to communism.
Listen to this motherfucker.
Patriot. I think he's wrong about the conspiracy, but he's probably less wrong about what he says about this country than the guy I'm talking to.
Ooh. 1 point scored for Pat Buchanan there. Because the other guy, I think he sensed that he was making mockery. And Pat Buchanan was like, okay. He was really listening. All right. But in any case, yeah, let's get some comments, which I like to do because some of these people had good things to say, actually. A member of Congress who could express himself clearly, cogently, factually, and in complete sentences. How far we've fallen. One person was calm and had lots of research and facts. One was argumentative, tried numerous character assassinations, employed shame, tried to make the other feel like an odd duck, interrupted multiple times, and was smug and unreachable. When facts were introduced he didn't like, he immediately changed the subject. This is just like what we see today. How sad. He would have made a great president. This man was 100% correct. Can't argue with the truth. He was 100% correct. And we see it being played out daily across the world now. This was a day ago. The most intelligent Democrat I've ever heard. He actually spoke the truth. Holy crap. He is being proven right before our eyes. When Democrats start repeatedly calling something a conspiracy theory, you can be assured that you're over the target. Even the interview is aimed at making the target crumble. Flanked on both sides, constantly questioned and interrupted, using buzzwords like conspiracy, see what I mean? To make the man seem unhinged. And yet, with the strength of someone who knows they're saying nothing but the truth, McDonald remains calm and collected, making his points clearly and in a level tone. Some people used to say he was nuts, yet the world we live in today proves he was right all along. They've been at this for a century now. They will not stop until their precious world government is enforced. And anyone who gets in their way, they will destroy, either physically, mentally, or in the public's opinion. Yeah, that's about it. Oh, man. See? That's what we've been telling you all along. And people will quick, conspiracy. You can see that as a ploy in and of itself. So, once again, I hope whoever views this is enlightened, all right, edified. That's what we aim to do here at Great Millstone, filter everything through the scriptures. And hopefully you can see what we see, all right, if the Holy Spirit is working with you. So with that, until the next video, hey, shalom.